Hello, my name is Stephanie Rodriguez, and I am the Director of Youth Programs for the Healing Center. The Healing Center is an amazing organization dedicated to the intervention and prevention of domestic violence and sexual assault, serving people of diverse faiths, cultures, and personal experiences. Our vision is to provide a safe place for women and children to receive supportive counseling, referral services, and information assistance they need to build a happy and healthy and safe life for them and their children. The Healing Center envisions a world without family and sexual violence, where families are safe and communities work together towards peace and justice. Today, I'm going to speak about coercive control. For me, I prefer to speak about coercive control over the physical aspect of domestic violence for quite a few different reasons. The main reason is most people, when they think of domestic violence, often think of the physical aspect of it. They do not take into account all the different tactics that are often used before something gets physical. And often these tactics aren't very visible, or people do not recognize them right away. Because at its core, domestic violence is about power and control over another person. Not all tactics of control are obvious. In fact, the coercive tactics we're going to speak about today often lie in plain sight, but still work to control the partner due to the ever-present threat of violence, whether it be physical, psychological, or sexual, or all three. Coercion is the use of power to gain control over another person and limit that a person's ability to make decisions for themselves. I prefer to use this definition of coercive control because I think it is so much more broader than that. So coercive control is a pattern of psychological and emotional behaviors, whether it be intimidation, humiliation, threats, that enforces the abuser's rules and power and control over a victim. The tactics are intended to create a state of fear and subordination. The fear of violence or stresses, severe distress that coercive control causes has a substantial adverse impact on a person's day-to-day life. Coercive control, we're going to speak about it mostly from in an intimate partner perspective. However, coercive control can be used in different aspects of our life, or have been used in different aspects of our life. It can happen within a parent-child relationship. It can happen through from a group of people to another group of people. But today we're going to speak about it from an intimate partner view. So what is coercive control? What does that look like? Coercive control is a form of abuse, and it can involve a variety of different offenses, whether it can have the physical aspect of it, so that threat of that violence, which could be assault, rape, damage to property, or threatening to kill somebody. It can also take place of a person harming an animal. So we do see that threat. That physical threat can also be the harming of an animal. That is not uncommon. It is often a repeat behavior of coercive abuse, and is ultimately about owning another person. When we see people who use tactics of coercive control, in their minds they believe that their victim, that person they're in a relationship, belongs to them. They are an item, they are an object, they are not a person that has autonomy over our own lives. So that is one of the more common things that we see across the board, is that view of that other person belonging to them. Is a possessive, it is a predatory obsession, and has everything to do with psychological assaults, passive-aggressive insults, ultimatums, and once again, a general loss of autonomy for the victim. The dynamics of coercive control is about disempowering another person, and it happens gradually over time. This is because the person does not want the person that they're trying to control or break down to realize that this is happening. So it's so insidious. It is so almost in plain sight that it's hard to see, and happens gradually and continues to build gradually. It's about, at the end of the day, breaking a person's psyche down, breaking the person down so that they can't even trust their own mind. You're going to see when we continue talking about coercive control, the psychological effects and trauma that it can cause to a person who experiences coercive control. So what are some of the signs, right? So great. We're now understanding that coercive control is a huge part of domestic violence and one of the largest parts that people don't speak about. However, what are the signs? How can we call something coercive control? Or what are the signs that we should look out for, whether in our own relationships or people that we know's relationship? It's just good to have these tools, kind of have these in the back of their mind, and wait, this is kind of a red flag. For us to kind of pay attention to. So the first thing I'm going to speak about is being isolated from family and friends. This is so important. This is a common thread that we genuinely see in a lot of domestic violence cases. Not in every single case, but in the vast majority of them, which is being isolated from your friends and family. This is done for a few reasons. The first reason being, obviously, if a friend or a family is realizing that you're not yourself. And you can see it when a person is literally being broken down. You can even see that physically. The way they stand, they no longer look people in their eyes. They almost look like a shell of a person. Somebody who knows somebody very well, whether it be a good friend or a family member, is going to be able to notice those things. So if somebody wants to control someone, you're going to take them away from the people who can kind of snap them out of that. And that can be done a few ways. It can be told, you have single friends, and why do you have single friends? It's a bad look. Like, you're in a relationship right now. They just want to go out and, it's not a good look for you. Or it's a family member that they turn around and say, this family member has always been against me. They've never liked us. They're trying to break us up. I'm the only person who understands you. I'm the only person that gets you. It's me and you against the world. So it bonds them even closer. And this is a form where we can see trauma bonding happening at the same time from the isolation of the family and friends. Another tactic that is used is being deprived from your basic needs. That could be food, that can be medication, that could be comfort. If you're somebody who is people have their different love languages. Some people, they need physical touch, like hugging or time being spent together. So they will kind of give you a breadcrumb and then take it back and deprive you from that attention that you crave, that you need for comfort. Also medication, we see this a lot also in either elder abuse cases, or we see this a lot within the LGBTQ community, specifically within the trans community, when they're dating somebody and they refuse to let them get the hormones that they need to survive. So we do see that happening in those type of relationships. We also see depriving from the financial, so not having control over their own money, being given a small allowance, and or having to account for every penny that is spent, even if it's their money. Because once again, it's about having that controlling aspect of that person. We also see with coercive control that there could be threats of violence. So, and a threat of violence does not necessarily mean that it is physical violence. Once again, it could be destroying property. It can be hurting an animal. It could be threatening to hurt your children. It could be cleaning a weapon in front of you. So having a knife and constantly when they're speaking to you, opening and closing the knife, opening and closing the knife. It can be somebody who takes apart their gun and cleans it piece by piece while they stare at their victim. These are all tactics that are used to intimidate somebody without ever having to be physical. Just the threat of harm has the same effects on somebody's body as the physical. Your cortisol goes up. So what that happens is you're in constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. When this happens, our cognitions are only on survival mode. So we're going to make more mistakes. The abuser wants you to make more mistakes, because the more mistakes you make, and mind you, it could be the tiniest mistake of, instead of getting honey turkey, you got honey ham, but they wanted honey turkey. So you could be making little mistakes, but they want you to do that because you're on your toes all the time, and it's easier to control somebody that way. So once again, it can also have a large part of coercive control is gaslighting, which will be discussed a little bit later, which is it's a big part of coercive control. We hear gaslighting being used often. However, sometimes it doesn't. The manner in which people are using it does not encompass the entirety and how detrimental something like gaslighting is, and what that really does to a person's psyche. Another part of it is being constantly put down, whether telling you you're dumb or ugly or fat or whatever the put downs are, constant criticism, constant humiliation, intimidation, degrading, name calling, telling you you're worthless, you're never going to be anything. This is all other ways of getting into your psyche, because what they want to do at the end of the day is break a person down. And we see these tactics also being used, these coercive tactics, once again, being used in from one country to another country. We see it done in cults. We see it done in sex trafficking, the breaking down, the coercive control. So it's done through the board, or even in the military, when you see somebody like that boot camp aspect, it's about breaking them down to building them up in their image, building them up as a soldier. It's the same thing with domestic violence. It's breaking them down as a person so they can build them up in the way that they want to, like a very Pygmalion type of style. But at the end, like, if there's anything to take away about like the tactics that are used, is always remembers this taking away of freedom. So it's taking away the freedom of movement, giving the illusion, and this happens very often, they give the illusion that the victim is free to make independent choices, filtering, but however, the perpetrator uses jealousy to justify the control over this person. So they'll give the illusion that this person has, freedom to see who they want and dress how they want to dress or eat what they want to eat. Yet they will use the tactic of jealousy to justify the control and cut ties, from the people that they know, so that there's less action. So freedom of association, speaking, often we see them speak on a victim's behalf, interrupting their conversations, or you'll see the victim filtering what they do and what they say or what they read, or what they wear. We see that often. And then freedom from finances. So not allowing for financial independence, monitoring what they can spend, preventing them from working outside of the home, etc. So these are tactics that we often see used in dictatorships. It's a very tyrant type of abuse that entraps the victim, and that's what the whole thing is about. Because they want to isolate the victim, they want to instill that fear, they want to be able to control them even better. So the victim, the personal autonomy that person experiences is vanishing little by little, and soon they even start to doubt their sanity. And one big way that they do this is by using the tactics of gaslighting. We can't talk about coercive control without talking about gaslighting. Although more and more people are using the word gaslighting, they do not understand how insidious it can actually be. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or a group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual person or group, making them question their own memory, perceptions, judgment, often invoking them in cognitive dissonance and other changes, which includes low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, PTSD. Using denial, so some of the tactics that are used with gaslighting is they use denial, misdirections, contradictions, misinformation, and it's attempt to destabilize the victim and delegitimize the victim's beliefs. Instances can range from denial by an abuser, that previous abuse incidents even occurred, or belittling the victim's emotions and feelings to stage or feelings, right? So, okay, I hit you, but you caused me to hit you. Or why are you so upset? Like, you made this happen. It's your fault that this happened. So you're overreacting. I never did that. I never said that. This is all in your head. So people start to deny their own instincts. So seven important warning signs when it comes to gaslighting. So you'll see somebody withholding information from the victim, countering information to fit the abuser's perspective. So discounting information, using verbal abuse, usually in the form of jokes. Blocking and diverting a victim's attention from outside sources, trivializing or minimizing the victim's effort, and undermining the victim by gradually weakening them and their thought processes. So when somebody says like minimizing a victim's worth, it can look like I've known of an experience where a person went to go literally get cold cuts, and because their mind was so all over the place, they got the wrong ones, just the wrong ones. When they got back, the abuser turned around and told them, I can't be mad at, I'm mad, but I can't be mad at you because at least you went out to get the cold cuts. And when I spoke to the victim turned around and told me, well, what bothered me the most was I felt bad because this person could not get mad at me. So they were actually feeling bad that the person who wanted to abuse them was using, oh, well, I can't do that because the little thing that you went and did, I technically can't get mad at you, but I'm mad. So now that person takes it away. Oh, I'm taking away this person's ability to be mad at me, and put all of that on there. Besides the mistakes, but the fact that they took away the person's ability to be mad at them. So that's how gaslighting works. And, the three common methods we see, is hiding. So the abuser may hide things from the victim or cover up what they've done. So you didn't see what you saw. That conversation never happened. Instead of feeling ashamed, the abuser may convince the victim to doubt their own beliefs about the situation and turn and blame themselves. So what we saw in the example last time, she was blaming herself for that person not being able to be mad at her, even though it was an honest mistake. We see a lot of changing. So the abuser feels the need to change something about the victim, whether it be the way the victim dresses or acts, or they want to mold them into their fantasy, even the way a person eats, what a person can eat. It's all about molding them into this fantasy. So breaking them down and molding them to this fantasy, like this Pygmalion type of obsession. And if the victim doesn't comply, the abuser may convince the victim that he or she is in fact not good enough. So you're not good enough to be a woman, or you're not good enough to be my woman. You're not good enough to do this, or whatever it is. It's of you're not enough, especially you're not enough without me. You'll never be able to survive without me. And then once again, the aspect of control. So the abuser may want to fully control and have power over the victim. In doing so, the abuser would try to seduce them from other friends, families, so only they can be the influence on the victim's thoughts and actions. The abuser gets pleasure from knowing the victim is being fully controlled by them. So if you see, when you hear gaslighting and kind of everything that it entails, it does have this feeling of being with a narcissistic person, right? It's about them. It's about their feelings. It's that other person's feelings doesn't happen. Now, you don't have to be a narcissist to use the tactics of gaslighting. It could be done in a relationship where you're cheating and the person is cheating and they just don't want the person to know because they don't want the repercussions. I don't want that to be misconstrued that you need to be a narcissist to use gaslighting. People who are not narcissists do use gaslighting. So the last part I kind of want to speak about is the effects of this coercive mind tricks. Like, what are the what are the effects of these tactics on the victims? So, controlling and coercive behavior, these tactics are carried out over time. So it's not a one traumatic incident. This is a continuous amount of time, forcing the victim to adapt to these tactics and to a series of small invisible steps. So it can start off with, I don't like you wearing red lipstick, to now it's done so smallly that you don't even realize that this person is starting to control you, almost control your mind. Because there's done in such incremental steps. It's not, once again, this obvious, like, boom, this is it, I'm controlling your life. It's done so slightly. So when it becomes more and more and more, you're used to it. It's not like going from 1 to 100. It's going from 1 to... So once you step up little by little by little, you're not realizing how far you have come from the person that you actually were. Because the abuse is so insidious, most victims fail to work out these covert psychological gaslighting behaviors that is often causing them so much anxiety and stress. So walking on eggshells type of feeling. Therefore, they fail to put up the ego's defenses that is reserved for adverse situations. So it helps minimize the trauma that they're experiencing. These effects can have a way on people's critical thinking as well as free will, and are both significantly have a way of really pulling away somebody's fundamental rights, which is autonomy over their own life. It's about like living in this invisible jail. We often see that the psychologically victims can experience depression, guilt, shame, anger, fear, loneliness, even though they're in the relationship. So you hear people say, I've never felt so lonely as I did within that relationship. And then physical symptoms as panic attacks, flashbacks, anxiety, negative thoughts, fatigue, eating disorders, disassociation, and post-traumatic stress disorder. For me, I think this form of abuse, I think it's interesting that we do recognize abuse and we do understand that it is a cycle. But I think it's interesting that this sort of abuse has been recognized, because the thing about domestic violence is very much of a pattern of different behaviors and very much of repeated behaviors. Yet most crimes, or when people go to jail for some incident of domestic violence, it's always about a single assault event. So the woman got hit, the police were called. But this coercive control has been going on for far before that single incident happened. That's why we discuss things like coercive control, or that's why I discuss the tactics of coercive control, because unfortunately in America it is not illegal. There are some European countries that have now made coercive control illegal, which include Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, and France. America is a bit behind the times when it comes to making coercive control illegal. But what we can start doing now is start thinking, we can change the mind of society to think of domestic violence in the form of coercive control versus the physical aspect or the sensationalized aspect of the physical, of the bruises. We can then really start working from a framework, whether it be services, whether it be education, whether it be how people look at their own relationships. We can start looking at it from a frame of coercive control. And what we very see often is the culture changes and then the laws change. So thank you for listening to my webinar on coercive control. If you have any questions, or if you are a victim, or know someone who's a victim, please contact us at the Healing Center. All of our services are 100% free and confidential. Our phone number is 718-238-5138, or you can go on our website, which is www.thehealingcenterny.org. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.